Vulnerability analysis. Vulnerability analysis typically involves the accessors or testers running vulnerability or network port scans to better understand which services the network or application is running and whether there are any vulnerabilities in any systems included in the scope of the assessment. So this process often includes a manual vulnerability testing or discovery, which is often the most accurate form of vulnerability analysis or vulnerability assessment. There are many tools, both free and paid for, so to assist us in quickly identifying vulnerabilities on a target system or network. After discovering vulnerabilities, after discovering security weaknesses, the next phase is to attempt exploitation. Exploitation is the most commonly ignored or overlooked part of the penetration testing. And the really is that clients and executives don't care about vulnerabilities unless they understand why they matter to them. Exploitation is the ammunition or evidence that helps articulate why the vulnerability matters and illustrates the impact that the vulnerability could have on the organization. Furthermore, without exploitation, the assessment is not a penetration test and is nothing more than a vulnerability assessment, which is most companies can conduct in-house better than a third-party consultant could. To put it simply, during the information gathering phase, a penetration tester will profile the target and identify any vulnerabilities. Next, using the information about the vulnerabilities, the penetration tester will do their research and create specific exploits that will take advantage of the vulnerabilities of the target. This is what exploitation is. We use exploits, this means malicious code, to leverage a vulnerability weakness in a system, which will allow us to execute arbitrary code and commands on the target. Often after successfully exploiting a target system or network, we may think the task is done, but it isn't just yet. There are tasks and objectives to complete after breaking into the system. This is the post-exploitation phase in the penetration testing. Post-exploitation. Post-exploitation exploitation is the process of gaining access to systems that may contain sensitive information. The process post-exploitation, the primary goal is typically to demonstrate the impact that the vulnerability and access gained can pose to the organization. The process of post-exploitation is the continuation of the step where the foothold gained is leveraged to access data or spread to other systems within the network. During the post-exploitation, the primary goal is typically to demonstrate the impact that the vulnerability and access gained can pose to the organization. The impact assists in helping executive leadership better understand the vulnerabilities and damage it could cause to the organization. And the last phase is report writing. Report writing is exactly as it sounds and is one of the most important elements of any penetration test. Penetration testing may be the service, but report writing is a deliverable that the client sees and is the only tangible element given to the client at the end of the assessment. Reports should be given as much attention and care as the testing. I will cover report writing in greater detail later on this course, but report writing involves much more than listing a few vulnerabilities discovered during the assessment. It is the medium in which you convey risk, business impact, summarize your findings, and include remediation steps. A good penetration tester needs to be a good report writer, or the uses they find will be lost and may never be understood by the client who hired them to conduct the assessment. Having completed this lecture, you are now able to describe each phase of penetration testing here. Furthermore, you have a better idea of expectation of penetration testers exploitation penetration testers in the industry. Next, we will dive into understanding various penetration testing methodologies, standards, and frameworks. So I am waiting you in next lecture.